apparently all the accolades that Caitlin Clark is receiving is because she's white, and the jealous players who are attacking her are really the real victims here.
Sheryl Swoopes she's lighting herself on fire, Steve. They had to pull her off a game because she can't be trusted to call Caitlin Clark games correctly or fairly. They basically pulled her off the game for racism. You're too much of a bigot to call Caitlin Clark games. We're pulling you off the game.
What a complicated situation we find ourselves in when some choose to act out of racism and show disdain for Caitlin Clark, especially now that Sheryl Swoopes is absent from today's broadcast.
Now, she made news last week when she sat up there and was applauding Indiana Fever players, but then forgot to mention Caitlin Clark. She jumped all in my ass because I sat up there and said, hey, how you going to ignore Caitlin Clark?
She has been taken off the Dallas Wings Indiana Fever game, as we know. We could list all of Sheryl Swoopes' accomplishments, but just last week, she was in a heated exchange with Stephen A. Smith, who called her out for not acknowledging Caitlin Clark when discussing the Fever.
You know what she brings to the table. How you just going to ignore her? That's not an accident. Sheryl Swoopes is a champion. A champion. Look at her tweet and what she put up about me. You talk about whomever and whatever you want to on your podcast, correct? So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have a personal relationship with these players, and they deserve recognition as well. That ain't the point, Sheryl Swoopes. Yes, I did listen to your entire podcast. You didn't mention Caitlin Clark.
It was absurd. She mentioned every player on the roster except Clark. Recently, we also had the incident involving Diamond D. Shields, which Swoopes defended.
Your personal relationship, what that got to do with your coverage? Ain't nobody said don't mention them. Ain't nobody said don't applaud them. Nobody told you to ignore them. What we're saying is if you're going to give the Indiana Fever all the credit in the world, how you going to mention the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark's name even coming up?
D. Shields and Caitlin Clark was involved in a controversial play during the Chicago Sky game. Honestly, it's hard to say which incident was worse, Kennedy Carter or Diamond D. Shields. But here we are. Keep your head up, kid. Hate won't prevail. You have support, and there's nothing these malicious individuals can do about it. All love for you. Swoopes defended D. Shields after the hard foul, and yes, D. Shields is facing significant backlash, which is deserved.
She's going to face a level of racism from black players.
Diamond the Shield received racist threats after Caitlin Clark flagrant foul.
I made a video earlier noting that 80% of the Chicago Sky's flagrant fouls are against Caitlin Clark.
Be very jealous, and that I think is going to be a monster problem. I hope they get over it for the winning. Guys like to win, even if they're not the star. Well, great, we'll get a championship. Well, everybody jump on Michael Jordan's back. Everybody jump on Larry Bird's back. I don't know if that'll happen with Caitlin Clark.
Swoopes has been notably critical, leading to changes in the broadcast team.
So for people to come at me and say that I made those comments because I'm a racist, like, first of all, black people can't be racist, but like that's the farthest thing from my mind, that I speak up for people that look like me.
WNBA icon Sheryl Swoopes has been openly critical of the 22-year-old point guard throughout the season, even upsetting fans on social media after she seemed to back D. Shields for her aggressive foul on Clark. Now it appears that Swoopes' negative stance towards Clark has resulted in her removal from the broadcast of the Dallas Wings Indiana Fever game, where she was supposed to be an analyst.
Every time Caitlin gets fouled, we can't make it seem like she was assaulted. Why like a Stephen A. Smith? It was that important to you to run the Kennedy Carter hip check, right? That was everywhere. But yet you didn't even discuss what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel Reese.
Wow, that's quite something. The Wings official website now showcases Ron Thulin and the iconic Nancy Lieberman, a Naismith Hall of Famer, as the play-by-play and color commentators. So much for my theory about her being on the sidelines. She's not. That's intriguing. Swoopes even seemed to back this up when she replied to someone who said, "Can't wait for your announcing today. Silence or hatred is what we're betting on. Your ass is covered by ESPN, so anything can happen." She shot back, "Not today, Satan." Oh boy. Honestly, I would have loved to see this unfold. It would have been must-watch TV.
This isn't just for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player said it.
Okay.
Sheryl Swoopes is really going after Caitlin Clark, and it's starting to get old.
That'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it should be.
She said some pretty mean things about her, and now people are digging up some dirt on Swoopes. Turns out there was this huge scandal with her team back in 2008.
Loyola University basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes, she's under investigation, accused of mistreating players.
A bunch of players accused her of being a terrible coach. Like, 10 of 12 players said she was bad news. It's crazy. So people are wondering if Swoopes is just projecting her own problems onto Clark. You know, like when you're upset, so you take it out on others.
One of them is speaking out this morning, telling us why she wanted to transfer. ABC's Lindsay Davis is here with the details. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Lara. Sheryl Swoopes was the first woman to ever sign with the WNBA.
It's kind of shady. Swoopes is really reaching when she says Angel Reese should win Rookie of the Year over Caitlin Clark. It's crazy. She's saying Clark got drafted to a better team, but the Indiana Fever were terrible. That doesn't make any sense.
But this morning, the college coach is not only under fire, but under investigation after reports that the majority of her roster has decided to leave.
Then you watch this old video about Swoopes, and you start wondering if there's something else going on here. Like, is race a factor in how she's treating Clark?
Turned Loyola College basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes is being investigated this morning amid allegations that she mistreated players.
It's wild to think about, but with all the stuff going on, it's a question that needs to be asked. Is she just another one of those WNBA players who hate on Clark because she's white?
It was the environment she created. I was belittled, humiliated, made to feel extremely small.
Sheryl Swoopes is really stirring the pot with her comments about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. She thinks the Indiana Fever could make the playoffs without Clark, but not the Chicago Sky without Reese. Fans are not happy.
Head coach since 2013. Last year, 5 of her players reportedly transferred to different programs. And this year, a reported 10 of the team's 12 players aren't planning on coming back.
They're calling Swoopes a hater and blasting her on social media. There's something weird going on here, though. It's like there's more to the story than just a disagreement about Rookie of the Year. Swoopes is just making stuff up about Caitlin Clark's college stats. She's saying Clark took 40 shots a game and only averaged 19 points. That's completely wrong. Gilbert Arenas should know better than to just let her say that without correcting her. It's like she's trying to make Clark look bad on purpose. Caitlin Clark definitely wasn't taking 40 shots a game in college. That's just ridiculous. And yeah, her team should get her the ball more. No doubt about it. But this whole thing with Sheryl Swoopes is getting weirder and weirder. Now we're looking at this old video, and it's raising some serious questions. Who is this woman in the video, and what does she have to do with anything? This is getting really strange. It's worth mentioning that, if you're curious, Sheryl Swoopes is known for her strong activist views, typical of the WNBA's activist stance. I recently saw a video featuring a young woman.
Just because you are a great player doesn't make you a great coach.
And I couldn't help but notice how much she resembled Caitlin Clark. It struck me as odd. Sheryl Swoopes has a history of making negative comments about Caitlin Clark, which is quite troubling.
Former Loyola basketball player Kate Sohn says Swoopes caused the players to live in fear, that she routinely threatened that they would lose their scholarships or she would cut them from the team.
I'm not sure what's driving this behavior. It feels like there's some sort of gatekeeping happening. Sheryl mentioned 2008, but the video also referenced 2013 and 2016. So is the issue really about Caitlin Clark's abilities, or is there something else going on?
It made it hard to play. It wasn't about working hard and having fun anymore. It was about surviving.
Regardless, I'll definitely be watching the game. God help me. I'm actually tuned into the Suns and Storm game right now. What's going on in the world? I have no clue. This is just beginning to spread. Many folks haven't realized that Sheryl Swoopes has been removed from the broadcast. Someone recently mentioned the Fever face the Wings today at 3 p.m. Eastern. Swoopes will be on the mic unless you've been living under a rock.
Anytime a basketball play happens towards Caitlin, it's because players are envious, they're targeting her, they're jealous, they're haters, they're racist. I keep going on and on. Kennedy Carter is one of the best guards in the league.
Sheryl Swoopes herself. She recently spoke on her podcast, Queens of the Court, and didn't mention the rookie when speaking of Indiana's rise in the standing. Here's what Sheryl Swoopes had to say. Look at this quote here. I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana. I'm going to shout out to Lexi Hull. I'm a big Lexi Hull fan. Lexi Hull shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She's just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. If Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the standings.
Then, during a recent broadcast, she went quiet for 50 seconds while her co-host talked about Caitlin Clark being named Player of the Week. It doesn't get much pettier than that. She couldn't even utter a word. It's ridiculous.
Respectfully, Sheryl Swoopes, you have any idea how that makes you look? You have any idea how that serves to stain any kind of critique of Caitlin Clark, because that gives fodder to those who believe she's being hated on and ostracized to some degree. Do you realize that, Sheryl Swoopes, you're insane to do that?
Swoopes reflecting on herself before sleep. I'm not envious. They can't stand her, and I find it amusing. Honestly, CC is occupying space in her mind. Swoopes is lacking in class. I can't grasp the hostility she shows towards CC. She's really damaging her own legacy by acting so enviously.
Because Sheryl Swoopes, you're one of the greatest players ever in the history of basketball. See, you won a championship in college at Texas Tech. You won 3 Olympic gold medals. You won 4 WNBA championships. You know basketball. You know basketball better than me. You know basketball than any of the pundits. You know basketball better than most of the men that play basketball. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name out.
Time to mature, Sheryl. She's being absolutely overwhelmed. It's crazy that they don't see their frustration comes from feeling they should be the stars in this league. It was meant to be them, but it hasn't played out that way. It's been Caitlin Clark who not only shifted the narrative, but shattered it.
I just love that she tries to stay grounded, and she says she doesn't, what did she say? She doesn't have a social, she doesn't look at her social, and I get it. I don't either. And I think it's so important to just to continue to do what she's doing, and no matter what other people do, then if people are negative, it's because they can't do what you do.
Everyone is aware of the revenue, attendance, and ratings. Caitlin Clark is smashing records and receiving all the recognition they believed was theirs.
Nobody was talking about your league. Nobody cared about the WNBA until that girl. That girl, Caitlin Clark, I don't care what color she is. She's ridiculous. She's nasty. And now people are watching and you guys are talking shit about her. Like, what are you guys doing? They're sabotaging the whole thing. She should leave. She should have got those other contracts, Pat. Where does she have a contract to go somewhere else?
The Big Three.
She should have gone to the Big Three. To hell with the WNBA. They're nothing. They're nobody. Nobody's watching.
They lost $50 million. The WNBA lost $50 million. The only reason they make it is because the NBA kind of gives money to them to help them out. It's a lost cause every year.
Well, you didn't. My bad. I'm not sure what else to add at the moment. This is just a quick take. As I mentioned, I was just getting the news when I stumbled upon this. Fever Wings TV is making some shifts. Swoopes is out as an analyst, and they found a replacement. Great. Let Swoopes handle cleaning the locker room toilets. Woo. Seriously, she brought this on herself, honestly. It's crazy. Has there been an athlete, male or female, who's received more undeserved hate lately than Caitlin Clark? What's wrong with showing a little support? She learned from Sheryl Swoopes and many others. For Swoopes to behave this way is just shocking. Totally shocking. It's ridiculous. LOL, I saw this coming. Sheryl Swoopes skipped calling Caitlin Clark's game. So unfortunate.
By saying that Indiana is in the playoffs right now without Caitlin Clark. By saying that like Katie Lou Samuelson's really more integral in terms of her two-way ability than Caitlin, and also saying that, and I don't besmirch her for this because lots of people are making arguments for whether they think that it is Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark that should be Rookie of the Year. I've said that I think it's Caitlin, but that I could understand someone making an argument for the other. It's not hate to make an argument for Angel Reese. So I don't take any issue with that part. But the other part, it just feels like there is something there, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Sheryl.
No matter what stage you're on, if you're at the highest stage, there's always going to be people that are critiquing you. There's always going to be people that are complimenting you, and I think that just speaks to like how I was raised too. Like, you know, I've never been one to like weigh the opinions of the haters too much, or, you know, I was told like, you know, at the level you feel all the praise, that's going to be the same level you feel all the hate. So like, I feel like I just try to stay right in the middle.
She's really put herself in a bind. Does that mean she's out of a job? Probably not. From what I hear, they say it's normal for them to rotate crews. Maybe it is, but it seems pretty convenient that they chose to mix things up today. This shows that even the WNBA doesn't get it. Do you want viewers? Do you want excitement? Remember what TNT used to say, we know drama. You put Sheryl Swoopes on this broadcast if you want some drama. I was curious to see if she'd say something nasty or just stay silent about Caitlin Clark. I get the broadcasters saying, we don't want to take any risks. I mean, who knows what Sheryl Swoopes might say? It wouldn't shock me at all, honestly.
That soliloquy that you dropped about the Indiana Fever, stop it. You know that. Stop it. More. If you had talked about it more, they would have played more games. Like I had the power to go up to ESPN and say, you know, directors and producers and cameramans and everybody else flocked to the WNBA at the time when it wasn't nearly as popular as it was today.
No, man, this is too hilarious. Sorry, Sheryl, but take a back seat today. So funny. What do you think? Ellie Duncan defends Sheryl Swoopes once more, citing the absence of tolerance for racist or death threats in basketball.
This becomes, see, the women of the W are hating on Caitlin and they hate her. And we've covered that on this show plenty. What I appreciate is that with time, and with the benefit of hindsight on our side, I am noticing much more calm in terms of people saying, this is her opinion. This is not the opinion of everyone in the W. I think there have been enough cases of women in the W over the last few months supporting Caitlin, showing their support. I think there's been enough of that now that people can now take something that's seemingly inflammatory and give it and lay it at the feet of that person, as opposed to making it an entire diatribe on everyone in the W and how all of these black women hate Caitlin Clark.
However, overlooking Swoopes' past remarks, including false claims about Caitlin's records and labeling her as a bully, seems misleading and undermines credibility. I think Swoopes has some serious connections, and these analysts seem afraid to cross her. After all, she does have a history of being a bully as a coach. She's making this more complicated than it needs to be. Swoopes has a track record of lying about Caitlin and downplaying her achievements. Anyone paying attention can see why she'd intentionally leave Caitlin's name out when discussing the Fever's success. In the world of women's basketball, where every play matters, a recent tweet from Val Whiting stirred up a lively discussion about the ethics of accumulating statistics during games. Whiting, who is a former WNBA player and now a commentator, raised a question about whether players keep track of their rebounds during the game, hinting that Caitlin Clark's chase for her 10th rebound might be perceived as stat padding. This remark followed a game where Clark's performance was closely examined, prompting reactions from fans and analysts. Whiting's tweet stated, "Do players normally know how many rebounds they have during the game? Is that considered stat padding? BC Caitlin went after the rebound. Just asking." What seemed like a simple question quickly became controversial, with many fans defending Clark. One fan reacted strongly, saying, "Are you trying to destroy your own legacy like Sheryl Swoopes? This vitriol coming from you is shocking and unwarranted. You seem to like picking on a 22 who never did anything to you. I no longer respect you." Another fan questioned Whiting's fairness, asking, "Did you ask this question during the several double-double hunts at the end of games with Angel? If you did, great, at least you're consistent, but that board came right to Caitlin. Was she just supposed to let it go?" This suggests that players are usually aware of their stats during games, especially since they are often displayed, and pursuing rebounds is part of the competitive nature of the sport. Further supporting Clark, another fan remarked, "All the players' stats are on the Jumbotron above, stat padding. In a win, come on a stop, please." They argued that in a winning situation, striving for individual stats like rebounds shouldn't be viewed negatively. Adding a lighthearted element to the discussion, one fan joked, "Fever paid opposing player to miss," while another dismissed Whiting's comments as a troll post. These responses show a mix of disbelief and humor regarding the notion that Clark's actions were anything less than competitive.
Great white girl goes into a league and beats their asses.